Part 1: The Unveiling. A Marriage of Convenience. Daniel Westbrook adjusted his bow tie for the third time, staring at his reflection in the gilded mirror of the chapel's preparation room. At 32, he had closed billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, negotiated with the toughest investors in the industry, and built Westbrook Industries into a powerhouse that dominated the tech sector. Yet today, his hands trembled slightly as he prepared to marry a woman he had never met. The arrangement had been his mother's dying wish. Helen Westbrook, diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia 6 months ago, had used her remaining energy to orchestrate this union. The Ashford family owned the largest network of manufacturing plants across the country, and their partnership would secure Westbrook Industries' supply chain for decades. More importantly, it would give his mother peace in her final months. "You look like you're heading to your execution, not your wedding," James Porter said from the doorway. Daniel's best friend and company lawyer had been trying to inject humor into the situation all morning, but his eyes betrayed his concern. Daniel managed a weak smile. "Feels about the same right now. It's not too late to back out. Your mother would understand." "No, she wouldn't." Daniel turned away from the mirror. "She's given me everything, James. Built this company from nothing so I could have opportunities she never had. This is the one thing she's asked of me. I can't refuse her." The chapel bells began to chime, signaling the start of the ceremony. Daniel took a deep breath and walked toward the main hall, where 200 guests waited in polished pews beneath stained glass windows that cast rainbow patterns across marble floors. The mysterious bride. As Daniel took his position at the altar, he scanned the crowd. His mother sat in the front row, looking frail in her wheelchair but with fierce determination in her eyes. She smiled at him, and he forced himself to smile back. This was for her. The organist began playing the traditional wedding march, and everyone rose to their feet. Daniel's heart pounded as the massive oak doors at the back of the chapel opened. A figure appeared in white, escorted by Gregory Ashford, a stern-faced man in his 60s with silver hair and cold, calculating eyes. But it was the bride who captured Daniel's attention. She wore an elaborate gown with layers of silk and lace, but what struck him most was the veil. It wasn't the delicate, transparent kind that most brides wore. This was thick, almost opaque, falling from an ornate headpiece and completely obscuring her face. He couldn't make out even the basic shape of her features. The procession seemed to take forever. With each step the bride took, Daniel noticed something odd. Her movements were hesitant, almost fearful. Her bouquet of white roses shook in her hands, and he could see her breathing rapidly even through the heavy fabric of her dress. Gregory Ashford held his daughter's arm too tightly, Daniel observed. The older man's knuckles were white, his grip possessive rather than supportive. When they reached the altar, Gregory practically pushed the bride toward Daniel before taking his seat. Ghosts from the past. The ceremony began with traditional words from Reverend Matthews, an elderly man who had known Daniel since childhood. Daniel tried to focus on the words, on the commitment he was making, but his attention kept returning to the mysterious woman beside him. Through the veil, he could occasionally catch a glimpse of movement, the turn of her head, the flutter of her eyelashes. Something about the way she stood, the subtle tilt of her shoulders, triggered a memory he couldn't quite place. They exchanged rings, simple platinum bands that felt heavy on Daniel's finger. The bride's hands were small and delicate, her fingers trembling as she slipped the ring onto his hand. For a brief moment, their hands touched, and Daniel felt an electric jolt run through him. It was familiar somehow, like touching something he had once known intimately. "You may now kiss the bride," Reverend Matthews announced. This was the moment Daniel had been dreading. Kissing a stranger felt wrong, invasive. But every eye in the chapel was on them, including his mother's hopeful gaze. He reached for the veil with steady hands, determined to get through this with dignity. The fabric was heavier than it looked, multiple layers of silk and tulle. He lifted it slowly, revealing first a pointed chin, then lips painted soft rose, then a delicate nose, and then his world stopped. The impossible truth. Time seemed to freeze as Daniel stared at the face before him. His mind rejected what his eyes were seeing, insisting it was impossible, that stress and anxiety were making him hallucinate. But as he blinked and looked again, the truth remained unchanged. The woman standing before him, the woman he had just married, was Emma Cole. Emma. The art student he had fallen desperately in love with during his final year of college. The woman who had made him laugh until his sides hurt, who had challenged his assumptions about life and success, who had seen past his family name and fortune to the person underneath. The woman who had disappeared 8 years ago without explanation, leaving only a handwritten note saying she had to leave and that he shouldn't try to find her. He had searched for her anyway. Hired investigators, scoured social media, contacted everyone who had known her. But Emma had vanished as completely as if she had never existed. Eventually, drowning in the demands of running his family's company after his father's sudden death, Daniel had forced himself to move on. But he had never forgotten her, never stopped wondering what had happened, never stopped loving her. And now she was standing at the altar, dressed as Natalie Ashford, as his arranged bride. Silent understanding. Emma's brown eyes met his, and in them he saw a storm of emotions, recognition, fear, pleading, and something that looked like desperation. Her lips formed silent words, "Please. Not here." The chapel had gone quiet. Guests were beginning to murmur, wondering why the groom had frozen with the veil half raised, why he was staring at his bride as if she were a ghost. Daniel's mind raced through impossible scenarios. Was this some kind of elaborate scheme? Had Emma known about the arranged marriage and somehow replaced the real Natalie Ashford? But why? What could she possibly gain from such a deception? He glanced at Gregory Ashford and saw the man watching them with hawk-like intensity, his expression unreadable but somehow threatening. Emma's earlier fears suddenly made sense. She was terrified of him. In that split second, Daniel made a decision. Whatever was happening, whatever impossible circumstances had brought Emma to this altar pretending to be someone else, he would play along until they were alone. He would get his answers, but he would protect her first. He leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was supposed to be brief and formal, but the moment their lips touched, 8 years of loss and longing surged through him. Emma's lips trembled against his, and he felt her breath catch. It was real. She was real. The chapel erupted in applause, but Daniel barely heard it. He was too focused on the way Emma's hand gripped his arm, holding on as if she were drowning and he was her only lifeline. As they turned to face their guests as husband and wife, Daniel kept his expression carefully neutral. But his mind was spinning with questions that demanded answers. Who was Natalie Ashford? Where was she? Why was Emma pretending to be her? And what role did Gregory Ashford play in this impossible deception? The performance begins. The reception took place in the Ashford family's estate, a sprawling mansion surrounded by manicured gardens and armed security. Daniel moved through the crowd on autopilot, shaking hands and accepting congratulations while his new wife stayed close to his side. Emma played her role flawlessly. She spoke softly when addressed, kept her eyes downcast in a show of modesty, and responded to the name Natalie without hesitation. But Daniel noticed the small tells that others missed. The way her hand tightened on his arm whenever Gregory approached. The brief moment of panic when an elderly woman asked about her childhood summers in the Hamptons. The carefully rehearsed answers that sounded memorized rather than natural. During their first dance, Daniel finally had a chance to speak to her privately, though surrounded by watching guests. "Emma," he whispered as he guided her across the floor. "What's happening? Where is Natalie Ashford?" "She's safe," Emma breathed against his shoulder. "Daniel, I know you have questions, but please, not here. If Gregory suspects anything, people will get hurt." "People like you?" Her silence was answer enough. Daniel tightened his hold on her, a protective instinct rising in him that he hadn't felt in years. Tonight. Once we're alone, you tell me everything. I will. I promise. As the song ended and they separated, Daniel caught his mother watching them from her wheelchair. Helen's expression was curious, almost knowing, and when their eyes met, she smiled slightly and nodded. Did she somehow sense that something was different about this arranged marriage? The rest of the reception passed in a blur of cake cutting, toasts, and photographs. Through it all, Daniel watched Gregory Ashford with growing unease. The man never let Emma out of his sight, monitoring her every interaction, controlling even which guests she spoke to. Finally, as the evening wound down, it was time for the newlyweds to depart. Gregory pulled Emma aside one last time, and Daniel watched the exchange with clenched fists. Whatever Gregory said made Emma's face go pale, and she nodded rapidly, like a prisoner receiving orders from a guard. Then they were in the limousine, alone at last behind tinted windows and a privacy screen. The moment the car pulled away from the mansion, Emma collapsed against the leather seat, her composure finally breaking. "Thank you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for not exposing me." Daniel studied the woman he had married, the woman he had never stopped loving, and prepared himself for a truth he suspected would change everything. "Start talking, Emma. And don't leave anything out. Because Gregory has Natalie's little brother, Thomas. He's only 15, and Gregory keeps him at a boarding school in Switzerland. He told me that if I didn't marry you and secure this business merger, Thomas would have an accident. He showed me photographs, Daniel. The boy doesn't even know his sister is alive." The pieces fell into place with horrifying clarity. Gregory had orchestrated everything, using an innocent boy as leverage to force Emma into this deception. "Where is Natalie now?" Daniel asked. "Safe, with people who can protect her. She's gathering evidence against Gregory, building a real case this time. But she needed time, and I needed to keep Gregory believing everything was going according to his plan." Emma reached for Daniel's hand. "I never wanted to deceive you. When your mother contacted Gregory about the arrangement, when I learned it was you I would be marrying, I almost told the truth 100 times. Why didn't you? Because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. Afraid you'd hate me for leaving 8 years ago. Afraid I'd ruin your mother's last wish." Fresh tears spilled down her face. "I broke your heart once, Daniel. I couldn't bear to do it again." Old wounds. Daniel pulled his hand away, the old pain of her abandonment resurfacing. "You're going to explain that now. Why you left me without a real goodbye, without giving me a chance to fight for us." Emma's face crumpled. "My father got sick. Cancer. I got the call the same week you were planning to introduce me to your parents. He was in Ohio, alone, with no one to care for him. We hadn't spoken in years after he disowned me for choosing art school over the career he wanted, but he was still my father. You could have told me. I would have helped you. I know that now. But back then, I was 21 and terrified. Your family was so wealthy, so powerful. I was a scholarship student who could barely afford textbooks. My father needed experimental treatments we couldn't afford, and I was too proud to ask you for money. Too afraid you'd think I had been with you for your wealth all along." Daniel's anger softened slightly. "So you disappeared to take care of him." "I worked 3 jobs, took care of him through 18 months of treatment. By the time he died, you had graduated and taken over your father's company. I saw articles about you in magazines, pictures of you at charity galas with beautiful women. You had moved on with your life, and I had nothing to offer you but failure and grief." Emma's voice broke. "So I stayed away. I convinced myself you were better off without me." "That wasn't your choice to make," Daniel said quietly. "I spent years searching for you, Emma. Years wondering if you were alive, if you were safe, if you had ever loved me at all. I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day." Emma's hand found his again, and this time he didn't pull away. I know I can't undo the past, can't take back the pain I caused. But I'm here now, and I'm telling you the truth. Gregory Ashford is a monster, and I need your help to stop him. An unlikely alliance. The limousine pulled up to the hotel, but neither of them moved to exit. Daniel sat in silence, processing everything Emma had told him. The woman he loved was caught in a web of deception and danger, protecting both a survivor of abuse and an innocent teenager from a powerful predator. The business merger, Daniel said slowly. Gregory wants access to Westbrook Industries' technology patents. That's what this marriage was really about. The limousine glided through the city streets as Emma removed the elaborate pins from her hair, letting her dark waves fall free. Daniel watched her, seeing both the woman he had loved and a stranger shaped by years of secrets and pain. 2 years ago, I was working at a community center in Philadelphia, Emma began, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. Teaching art classes to underprivileged kids, trying to build a life after I left you. Daniel's jaw tightened at the mention of her departure, but he remained silent, letting her speak. One night, a woman stumbled into the center just before closing. She was bleeding, terrified, begging for help. Her name was Natalie Ashford. Emma's hands trembled as she continued. She told me she had escaped from her father's mansion, that he had been holding her prisoner for years. Prisoner? Daniel leaned forward. Gregory Ashford kept his own daughter captive? Since her mother died when she was 13. He isolated her completely, controlled every aspect of her life. Natalie showed me scars, Daniel. Cigarette burns, marks from restraints, years of abuse hidden behind the Ashford family's perfect reputation. Emma's voice cracked. She said her father used her as a pawn in his business deals, arranging marriages to wealthy men to expand his empire. But Natalie would panic, try to run, and Gregory would tell everyone she was mentally ill, unstable. Daniel felt sick. He had researched the Ashford family before agreeing to the marriage, but everything had seemed legitimate, respectable. Gregory's reputation was spotless. The great escape. I hid her in my apartment that night, Emma continued. We called the police, but Gregory had prepared for this. He had documentation from multiple psychiatrists claiming Natalie suffered from severe delusions and paranoid schizophrenia. Medical records going back years, prescriptions, therapy notes. All fabricated, but convincing enough that the police wanted to return her to his custody. So you ran together? Emma nodded. We used what little money I had saved and some jewelry Natalie managed to take. We moved from city to city, staying in shelters, safe houses. For months, we tried to build a case against Gregory, but he has connections everywhere. Judges, lawyers, politicians. Every time we thought we were safe, his people would find us. The limousine turned onto the highway, heading toward the honeymoon suite Daniel had booked at a downtown hotel. Emma stared out the window at the passing lights, lost in dark memories. Then Natalie got sick. Really sick. She needed surgery for a condition that had gone untreated for years because Gregory had denied her proper medical care. But she couldn't go to a hospital without identification, and using her real name would alert Gregory immediately. That's when you became her, Daniel said, understanding dawning. It was supposed to be temporary. Just long enough to get her the surgery she needed. I studied everything about her life, memorized stories Gregory had fabricated about boarding schools and overseas education. The transformation was easier than I expected because so few people had actually met the real Natalie. Gregory had kept her so isolated. The impossible choice. Emma turned to face Daniel, tears streaming down her cheeks. After Natalie recovered, we planned to disappear together, start new lives somewhere Gregory could never find us. But then. She paused, struggling with the words. Then Gregory announced Natalie's engagement to you. Daniel's chest tightened. Why didn't you refuse? Why go through with it? Emma nodded. He's been stealing designs from smaller companies for years, using his manufacturing plants to produce knockoffs. With your patents, he could dominate entire markets. Then we don't give them to him. Daniel's mind shifted into the strategic mode that had made him a successful CEO. We play along, make him think the merger is proceeding as planned. Meanwhile, we help Natalie gather evidence and we find a way to protect Thomas. You're willing to help me? After everything? Daniel looked at the woman who had been his first love, his greatest loss, and now his unexpected wife. The logical part of his brain screamed that this was insane, that he should walk away from this mess. But his heart, the part he had tried to bury under years of business deals and corporate strategy, knew exactly what he wanted. I lost you once, Emma. I'm not losing you again. He cupped her face in his hands. We'll expose Gregory, save Natalie and Thomas, and then you and I are going to have a very long conversation about our future. Emma kissed him then, a kiss filled with gratitude, hope, and the promise of second chances. When they finally pulled apart, Daniel saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before: trust. We should go inside, he said. We have a lot of planning to do. As they walked into the hotel together, hand in hand, Daniel knew their arranged marriage had become something far more complicated and dangerous than either of them had anticipated. But for the first time since Emma had disappeared 8 years ago, he felt truly alive. A mother's wisdom. The next morning, Daniel received an unexpected visitor at the hotel suite. His mother, Helen, arrived in her wheelchair, pushed by her nurse, with a determined expression on her face. I need to speak with you both, she said, her voice weak but firm. And I want the truth. Daniel and Emma exchanged worried glances. Mother, you should be resting. I'm dying, Daniel. I don't have time for rest or lies. Helen's sharp eyes fixed on Emma. You're not Natalie Ashford, are you? Emma's face went pale, but before she could respond, Helen continued. I've known Gregory Ashford for 20 years. Cold, calculating man. Yesterday at the wedding, I watched you flinch every time he came near you. I watched you hesitate when people asked about your childhood. And I saw the way my son looked at you when he lifted that veil. That wasn't the look of a man meeting a stranger. Daniel knelt beside his mother's wheelchair. Mom, I can explain, then explain. Helen's tone softened. I arranged this marriage to secure your future, Daniel. But not at the cost of your happiness. Tell me what's really happening. So they told her everything. About the real Natalie, about Gregory's abuse and manipulation, about Emma's sacrifice to protect innocence, and about the dangerous game they were now playing. Helen listened without interruption, her expression growing more troubled with each revelation. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. Gregory Ashford contacted me 6 months ago with this proposal. I thought it was perfect, 2 powerful families united, your future secured. But I see now that he manipulated me, used my illness and my love for you to accomplish his goals. Anger flashed in her eyes. No one uses my son as a pawn. Mom, you're sick. You can't get involved in this. I may be dying, but I still control 40% of Westbrook Industries stock. And I know people who can help. Helen reached for Emma's hand. My dear, I don't know you yet, but I can see that my son loves you. That's enough for me. Now, let's discuss how we're going to destroy Gregory Ashford. Over the next 3 weeks, Daniel's hotel suite became a war room. With Helen's connections, they assembled a team. James Porter worked on legal strategies, a former FBI agent named Rebecca Torres helped gather evidence, and a tech specialist named Kevin Wu worked to trace Gregory's financial crimes. The real Natalie, speaking via encrypted video calls from her hiding place, provided crucial details about her father's operations. She described a secret warehouse where Gregory stored stolen prototypes, identified shell companies he used to launder money, and named business partners who had helped him destroy competitors. He keeps everything documented, Natalie explained during one call, her face thin but determined. He's arrogant. He never thought anyone would dare challenge him. Emma played her role as Natalie perfectly, attending charity luncheons and business dinners with Gregory, all while wearing a hidden recording device. Each conversation added to their evidence, Gregory bragging about bribing officials, discussing illegal overseas manufacturing, casually mentioning companies he had destroyed through corporate espionage. Daniel found himself falling in love with Emma all over again. She was braver than he had remembered, more resilient. Each night, after the deception and danger, they would collapse together in the hotel suite, and slowly, they rebuilt the trust that had been broken years ago. The trap springs. The confrontation came at Westbrook Industries' quarterly board meeting. Gregory attended as Daniel's new father-in-law, expecting to finalize the merger agreements that would give him access to valuable patents. Instead, he walked into an ambush. "Before we discuss the merger," Daniel announced to the assembled board members, "I have some information to share about Ashford Manufacturing's business practices." Gregory's face remained calm, but his eyes turned cold. "Daniel, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time." Daniel nodded to Kevin, who pulled up financial records on the presentation screen. "These documents show that Ashford Manufacturing has been engaged in patent theft, corporate espionage, and fraud for the past 15 years. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Gregory stood abruptly. "These are lies, fabrications from competitors trying to destroy my reputation." "They're from your own servers," Kevin interrupted. "Along with evidence of money laundering, bribery, and intimidation." "And there's more," a new voice added. The conference room doors opened, and the real Natalie Ashford walked in, accompanied by Rebecca Torres and 2 federal agents. Gregory's face drained of color as he stared at his daughter. "Hello, Father," Natalie said calmly. "Surprised to see me?" Truth and justice. What followed was swift and brutal. Federal agents presented warrants for Gregory's arrest on charges of fraud, kidnapping, child abuse, and conspiracy. The board members watched in shock as the powerful businessman was led away in handcuffs, still protesting his innocence. But the most emotional moment came when a teenager was brought into the room. Thomas Ashford, retrieved safely from his Swiss boarding school, saw his sister for the first time in 3 years and broke down crying. "Natalie? They told me you were dead," he sobbed as she embraced him. "I'm here, Tommy. I'm here, and you're safe now. We both are." Emma watched the reunion with tears streaming down her face. Daniel wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "You did this," he whispered. "You saved them both. New beginnings." 3 months later, Daniel and Emma stood before Reverend Matthews again, but this time in a small chapel with only close friends and family present. Helen sat in the front row, her health stabilized by new treatments, smiling through happy tears. "Do you, Daniel Westbrook, take Emma Cole to be your wife?" "I do." Daniel's voice was strong and sure. "And do you, Emma Cole, take Daniel Westbrook to be your husband?" "I do." Emma's smile was radiant. This time, when they kissed, it was real. No deception, no fear, just 2 people who had found their way back to each other. At the reception, Natalie, healthy and glowing, approached them. "Thank you both. For everything. You're the brave one," Emma said. "You testified against your own father. Because you showed me I could be strong." Natalie hugged them both. "Thomas and I are starting over, building new lives. And it's all because you took in a terrified stranger 2 years ago." As Daniel danced with Emma, holding her close, he thought about the strange journey that had brought them here. An arranged marriage that wasn't what it seemed. A woman who had sacrificed everything to protect innocence. A love that had survived years of separation and pain. "What are you thinking?" Emma asked, looking up at him. "That I expected a cold arranged marriage, and instead I got my soulmate back." He kissed her forehead. "Best business deal I ever made." Emma laughed, the sound like music. "I love you, Daniel Westbrook." "I love you too, Emma Westbrook." And this time, they both knew, it was forever.